So, Victoria, how are you today? Welcome to another beautiful Monday afternoon. How's your day today?
Good. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another beautiful Monday.
And the Cosmic Joke podcast, where we all get to reflect on, this beautiful life and this journey of a path that I don't know why they call it less traveled, but a path of self-discovery or self-actualization, and the cosmic joke that seems to be part of the whole process and built into the matrix, so to speak. So anyway, so today we decided, we just were talking before because we really don't plan things, and we're like, we think what's been happening in your world this last week, what's been happening in my world this last week, and what have we been noticing? And we decided that we came up with basically our topic today is to stop thinking and start listening. We have a saying in our little world we participate in, your best thinking got us here. And I learned somewhere way back, my thinking in my head always seemed to really get in the way of my still small voice and the voice that I need to listen to, my intuition or my higher self, God, universe, source, Akasha, whatever you like to call it. The mainframe, I don't know. But so today, I think we're going to kind of flow on that topic for the day because it just resonated with us. Sound good, Victoria?
Yeah, it sounds like the perfect plan to me.
So do you want to, maybe give some examples, Victoria, of your opinion of what stop thinking and start listening means to you?
Yeah, so I guess maybe I'll give a brief rundown on like how we even kind of got to this topic on how we did today. So I was meeting with somebody today and we were talking about step one. And so step one, it comes into this, twofold thing of where it's, I'm powerless over alcohol. And then the secondary part of that is and then my life is unmanageable, right? So the first part of that, it comes in about like the physical component of this disorder, right? So it's, every time I take a drink, I can't control it and I'm physically addicted to it. It's just completely going to go shit, right? The secondary part of it is that, I have this mental problem and I keep obsessing about it, right? But needless to say, other than that, we had got to talking about where her life was unmanageable and on all these different ways, and we had gotten to this part where we were talking about the perfect conditions to where to be where she was going to like feel the most spiritual and free was where she would have no fees to pay, no access to grind, no people to please, and no lectures to be endured. And how in the circumstances in her life she had just found that like she had never been able to explore any type of person that she didn't even know who she was, more or less. And
Still working on that one.
Right. and when I was like listening to her to talk about this situation, I was just like, oh man, like I could hear just so much of myself like through her when I was listening to her today. And like that's how we got started on this conversation. So how about you, Randall? I'll pass it over to you.
I don't know. It's funny. I've had a few people over my life mention this to me when I've told them, I've just been told things and I listen and they're like, oh, wow, you're able to do that. And I don't know. To me, I've always had a little voice in my head that is, it's my conscience, right? We all have a conscience or a direct line to the all-knowing universe or whatever you want to call it, or maybe an ethical self that wants to live righteously and do the right thing and all these things, right? But it's always been there, and it's told me things, and even in the beginning of my journey when it literally told me you need to start smoking cannabis, and and then that little voice I listened to, and no peer pressure, was already out of high school, was just in a spot where I was out of high school. It was time for me to evolve and grow up, right? And get out of the house and become an adult, mature person, a human being. And it was really scary to me. And I remember my voice, it's like, you need to start smoking cannabis. So I listened to it and I started smoking it within a pretty quick period of time. I was selling cannabis, and then I'm like, whoa, I could grow cannabis. And then cannabis became a huge part of my journey for years as on the cultivation side, and dispensary side and business side. That's how I made my living while I was drinking, of course, and stuff. But it also, I was literally told to do it and I just listened. And I think it was an important part of my journey for sure. Actually, I know it was all necessary. So it's like, it's always been there. I've always had this voice that it'll tell me things, and sometimes I listen, and for a long time, most of the time I didn't, right? I actually kind of in my addiction and alcoholism really turned it off and kind of just was like, I don't want to hear you anymore. Like, I'm just gonna freaking go, and I just went on my mission of just self-destruction. Which truthfully, I feel that was still part of the plan, and so anyway, that voice has always been there, right? It's always been inside of me. I've always heard it. And then when I hit my rock bottom, and it was time to get sober, as I really became self-reflective on looking at myself and wondering, is this who I've really become? That little voice started to get stronger again, and told me maybe I should participate. And well, I had it through a counselor as well, right? Which that same voice that's in me sometimes will come through what appears to be others, right? It's the same voice, and if I'm not listening to it, someone will keep telling me until I finally hear it. So that's how I got sober. And really what I've learned in that process is a lot of these things, it's not me thinking, it's me listening. And when I realize I'm the listener, not the thinker, it's kind of more, it like opens up a whole new dimension for my reality. Now it's an art, and for me, the meditation and the living in the present moment, the internal infinite now, to always just be here now, quiet my mind with meditation, that still small voice, whatever you want to call it, like I said, higher self, my God, universe, gosh, it doesn't matter to me. It becomes very clear, and it'll tell me things, and guide me, and I just need to learn to listen to it. And the art as the human is to listen to it and do it, because a lot of them I'm like, no, I don't want to, or and it really becomes almost like a just say yes thing, when it gets really loud and you listen to it. It's like you got to just keep saying yes to it, and when you keep saying yes to it, it guides me in some pretty magical places. So but it took me a while to get to this. It didn't happen overnight by any means.
So do you think that it could ever guide you like the wrong direction?
I don't believe there's a wrong direction. I really feel that everything that unfolds in our experience or our reality is an exact outer manifestation of something that needs to happen on our path to get us to where we're going. I see a perfection in my whole story that has always put me to where it wanted me, and so I don't believe there is wrong or right or wrong choices. And I'll be honest, I don't even know if there's choices. I feel that what I've observed is when I end up somewhere, for my human, if it's comfortable and good, yeah, that's great. But if my soul wants to keep expanding, I only expand in failure or, bad things happening. That's the only way I learn. So when I've kind of saw that aspect, it's like, is there good or bad or right or wrong, or is there any bad choices? Because as long as I'm willing to be open to the lesson of what's happening, I just don't see it as, I see the universe as a divine, a perfect alignment, an unfoldment of everything that's supposed to be when I stay out of the way, and then, like I said, being open to the learning of why I'm in that experience, because the outer world's literally that reflection of my inner world. So anything that's happening has already been created within me. So anything outside of me is showing me that it's already changed within me. And, it's a dance. It's kind of like this interesting spot of awareness of my story that whatever is happening, I need to be okay with, and realize that a lot of people say we signed up for this before we got here, and we knew our story before we were placed here, and we signed up for it. And I don't know if I like to think that because it makes you feel better. Yeah, I created this, I signed up for it, like I could handle it, right? So it's motivating, it feels good. I get that, and if that's what you want to roll with, great. But I do think that everything that happens in my life, and especially now, is you see a perfection of how everything shows up that you need. Maybe not what you want, but what you need.
Interesting. Yeah, there's, I guess, a few things that you could bounce off of that, but yeah, I find that really interesting. I don't know. I just think like you have a mischievous look on your face.
I'm just waiting for you. Like, okay.
I'm trying to think. I'm like, which direction to go with that? Because like, there's so many different possible ones. Because it's like, okay, so if we, okay, if it's all meant to be, okay, so do we potentially have then this, lifelong unfolding story that's already laid out, and then we don't really have a choice in the matter, or is it, potentially that is it like a pick your own story, and then you can choose whatever outcome that you want, and then it's always unfolding differently? Or if everything is just a mirror, and there's this polarity and things like that, if am I just choosing for things to always be chaotic because I don't like things to be in neutral? It's just because I always feel like my life is chaotic. So like, am I purposely doing that to myself? I don't know. Do I know we
Probably
just
are, if you're looking at it with a chaotic lens, or you think it's chaotic, then it's chaotic, right? And I think they're all right answers. I think each individuation of consciousness has their own experience, and you get to see kind of what you program yourself that you want, right? I really believe that. So, I'll tell you, for me personally, though, that's interesting, because I have a real good buddy of mine that says it's a choose your own adventure, and you come to these choice points. But I see it more as every time I change a vibration, like, and I get to look back on it, I'm like, wow, I was stuck in a loop that was created by that vibration, and I was more a reaction to deeper shadows that I didn't even know were there. And then once they're made aware to me, now my reality starts to shift to a new reality. My new life's going to cost me my old life, but it's not really a choice, because usually when I'm burned out on the old one, I'm so sick and tired of that one that the only possible thing is change, and then whatever's meant in the next one kind of just shows up. And when I'm paying attention, it feels to me like it's already written. That's just my opinion. And when I'm confused or when I'm not sure, I just serve. The only thing I ever ask for is how to serve the universe's will. And when I do that, usually it makes it pretty clear which way it wants me to go. Because a lot of the thing, like if there is multiple doors, some of the doors just close and one door will stay open. And I'm like, okay, thank you. Those doors just closed, and they quit coming into my awareness, but this one keeps coming in. So it must want me to walk into it,
Okay, so how would you describe what that process looks like, I guess? Like how is it like unbelievably clear that that that's the way that you go? Because I guess that's where I find myself like stuck in my most recent world. Like I find that like, when I have all these doors that are shutting, and I try and find a direction that I should go, I just feel like sometimes these little doors will open, but then there just seems to be no movement, even if I try to move towards them. So I feel like I go the right direction, and then I feel like equally I get stuck. So like, what am I doing wrong? Or there's no right or wrong.
I don't think you're doing anything wrong. I feel, and I'm not a master. Trust me. I talk about what I observe, but then I need to live it, and I feel like patience is huge, and sometimes we walk through doors that we don't know we need to get to the door that we don't know we need either, if that makes any type of sense. So it's like when there's a lot of doors, I'm like, okay, which way do I want to go? Because I'm not sure right now. I don't know, right? So I'll kind of put my toe in all of them, and I'll kind of start, well, not kind of, I'll actually kind of walk into each one. Like I'm going to go to this one and address it. I'm going to go to this one and address it. I'm going to go to this one and address it. And then by going in all of them, I feel like if one's meant to be, then it unfolds with the next experience. It kind of keeps unfolding, whereas the other ones, sometimes they just go away or they dissolve, and I'll keep kind of stepping into them, but then it just sort of hits a dead end, or it just doesn't move forward. But then this other one keeps moving forward. And it's an art. Definitely takes being present and aware, and just being very neutral to look at them all and not stressed, right? Because sometimes I thought there's doors I really, really wanted, and I'll try to go down them and they just don't work. And then something that I like a lot, but I just don't feel like I have a time for it, just keeps developing on its own, almost without looking at it. And I know they say, where attention goes, energy flows, right? So you got to look at it to keep it in your awareness, to keep it alive. But there's been times where I've tried to do that with things, and I can't keep them alive. And then ones that I'm not looking at completely keep coming back. And, so to me, it's more like a patience and awareness thing, to watch what kind of wants to create a life of its own. It becomes self-organizing. Everything just happens to show up to keep it moving. Like, where I'm not even trying to keep that one, like just the magical little, this piece, that piece, this comes in. You're like, wow, like it's literally becoming a self-organized system. So I don't even need to really build it. It's building itself, if that makes any type of sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So I guess tying that back into our topic of the day. So I guess, is that where you would start bringing in more of like, would you start listening to what those self-organizing pieces are trying to tell you to do next? And that's where you
Yeah, I think so, so when I start listening, right, I'm present, I'm watching, so I'm listening, and listening can also be with my eyes, right? Things show up, I'm listening, I'm paying attention, right? Like things show up in my world, I'm like, okay, I mean, I guess I could say that, to have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, but to me, it's all listening is also really seeing. To me, that's listening to what's, I know it sounds weird, but I'm listening. I'm just paying attention. I'm aware. And at a certain point, I realize all my senses really become one sense, if that makes any type of sense.
Oh, absolutely.
Am I feeling it on top of it, right? A lot of times you just feel it too. You're like, wow, I'm hearing what I want to hear. Or I'm not hearing what I want to hear, but I'm seeing, and there always, sometimes it takes different shapes, but usually I find that all those senses come together as a feel too, as a, our gut feeling. And I'm like, ooh, this one just seems, but that's been wrong too, to be honest. I've had gut feelings there. It wasn't right. And I'm like, wow, but something kept self-organizing. And, next thing you knew, I listened to the universe. And I also want to throw out, I feel like when I'm listening, it's more through my heart as opposed to my head. My head tends to be a little more selfish, or about Randy, whereas my heart tends to be, okay, this is about everyone but Randy, and needing that heart-led kind of awareness and listening to that, I think usually gets me in a better place. When my head gets involved, man, it's chaos.
Oh, okay. So I want to pick your brain about that then. So what do you have any specific examples that you can think of for that? Or what does that look like for you? Because I think I'm the opposite. I think too logically about things, and then that ends up pissing people off. Because I don't tend to think with my heart, and then I end up hurting people's feelings by accident. And then they're like, "Hey, you were being a dick about that." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry," and without thinking about that. So like, how do you find a balance between, I guess, like the head and the heart when trying to make a decision? I guess moving towards something.
I don't know, how does it feel, but I'll tell you, that's a great one, because I don't have the perfect answer for that. And if anybody does, I would love to hear from them, truthfully, right? Because it's an art, and sometimes my head gets involved and I listen to that, but that's what I needed to listen to for that. It's like it took me there, and I'm like, ooh, man, that got in the way again, and here I am, Randy, getting in the way of the flow, or whatever we want to call it. But I'll tell you, it's like the simple, am I in fear? Am I in like a love vibration or a fear vibration? And if it feels really light and fluffy, it's usually the way to go. And it feels kind of heavy, maybe not so much. So maybe the best description I could give is, if it feels light and fluffy, it's my heart. And if it feels maybe a little heavy and thick, maybe that's my head, but truthfully, I'm not sitting here saying I got the exact answer for that. I practice these things, and I do my best. But it's definitely a science, or not a science. It's definitely something that's a skill. Let's call it a skill.
Trying to find something in between. But then, yeah, I guess that's interesting, because then it's like, are we really meant to have a perfectly balanced experience, or do we meant to have the experiences that we have in the way that we have them, because that's the way that we're meant to have them, right? Like, I don't know. I think about that sometimes.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, I feel like I said, I feel like it's all self-created, and they're all exactly, the world's always shown us exactly where we're at. We're right where we're supposed to be. We're it's very true. With as much as I don't want to admit it, a lot of the times you can only connect the dots backwards. And a lot of times I look back, I'm like, it was always exactly where I was supposed to be, or exactly where I needed to be. And I think that's where I got to remember, no matter what's happening, no matter if my head's in the way, like whatever's happening is what's needed at the time, and to be grateful for what's going on, regardless of what it is. And I don't know, the human doesn't like that, though. The ego does not like to feel so not listened to.
Yeah, to go after, or go against every type of instinct to have a different type of experience, I guess, eh?
Like I said, this is just my observations and things. And, sometimes I realize on my journey, I'll swear by a set of belief systems, and then later on I'm like, ooh, yeah, maybe that wasn't so good, you know. So I'm willing to I'm not saying that, like I said, I'm not saying this is the only way by any means. I do believe everyone kind of has a capability, or not kind of, completely has the capability to create their own program or belief system, and then that's what becomes real to their reality, you know.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, and I think that's what keeps it fun, though, is that everyone has a different like belief system. You know what I mean? Like for me, I think that's what brings the complete joy, and I love like I don't know. I think when everyone has the same belief system, it makes it absolutely no fun. I love everything from like just like the normal
Yeah.
mom and pop type of beliefs, but then I love the real outward, the real like out of the world ones.
Yeah,
Kind of my
no,
favorites.
absolutely right. No, yeah, it's more fun to not be normal, right?
Yeah. Like give me the real crazy ones. Like it
Yeah,
just
yeah,
makes it
no,
more fun.
absolutely. Hey, and let's be real. I mean, and you really look at all the ancient wisdom or teachings or the truth, you know, it's this one self, you know, that is everything, has subdivided itself to experience everything. And so you have to respect that in that truth, that all of it has to happen. So each thing is there to create its own experience, or to see all of them, and it's all the same thing, and that's why it created this planet. And so I have no problem with it. You know, who am I to? I got the one I'm living out for itself, and you have the one you're living out for itself, and other people have the ones there it's living out for that self, and that self wants to see all the experiences, and it's created them all. So good for it, you know.
Oh, I've never even thought about it that way. Yo, that's kind of crazy, actually. Like over like thousands of years, like to have that many different ones echoing out, like that's a lot of different beliefs. Like I love that actually.
Yeah. Well, it comes back to like yeah, we're getting away into deeper reality and spirituality than which is great.
Off topic.
We're gonna just keep going deep today, I guess. But
Conspiracy.
I read this book called Simulacra and Simulation, which was kind of what the Matrix was filmed off of, and it's like there was that original first creation, that original first astronaut suit, right? And then it's subdivided into two, and then into four, and then into 60, right? And it just kept growing, and each time it had an experience, the experiences started to, it became a self-replicating system, and each string on string theory had its own vibrate, and like, things would happen, and this one would do the same, this one would do the opposite, then this one would do the same, and this one would do the opposite. And next thing you know, you have all these experiences doing the exact same, exact opposite. And that's what it created, I guess, all those experiences, right? And then, as you like the Mr. Joneses in the movie, right? They're all in the Matrix, they're all the same thing, and then the path, the walk back to the river, or to the lake, to the, the ocean of consciousness, is to, I think, address each one of those experiences and look at it for what it is. And slowly but surely you become back whole with the one true existence and awareness of consciousness. But you have to slowly swim back up the stream, and I guess be active in the releasing of traumas, they say, on this planet, traumas or healings, or vibrational things that we had the opportunity to repeat, to keep it alive and keep it going, or to actually look at it and forgive it and get compassionate about it, and really take its power by not repeating it and stopping it, which sets a lot of other souls, so to speak, free, that are also sharing our string or our vibration, and they no longer have to do it either. So it's I wish people understood like how many other people it affected by every choice they made, because it literally, in the hologram, it's very powerful to literally become that change you want to see on the planet, to fix everything from the inside, not the outside, and fix it from the inside, and just observe the outside and watch the outside change by doing the inner work.
So why do you think it is that we always go back to finding a healing source?
What do you mean? Give me
So
one.
like finding like a set of truths, or like a place of where we started. Like why do you think that that's a thing that we try and find?
I don't know if everybody does. I think
I
there's,
think everyone does.
I would like to think so. But I feel like there's just certain, I mean, if we go into Hinduism and Buddhism and talk karmas, and, breaking free of samsara, the illusion of separation, and then stepping into the path of self-actualization or individuation or enlightenment, whatever word you want to call. But I do think this planet, the whole part of the simulation is to wake up in the realization of oneness, that consciousness is what I am. And, everything is literally a holographic house of mirrors, and it's showing me everything that I still need to look at within myself to let go and remove in order to get a clearer reflection of love and compassion. And, a lot of people are like, oh my God, it sounds like such a great place to live. But it really that's when all the real work begins, truthfully. That's when it's like, holy crap, this is a little brutal now. Now I have to really look at some shadows that I do not want to look at, and things that I really truly believe have kept me in a state of illusion of free will, because I was literally in a world of reaction to outer energy for so life, that I was literally reacting to everything that happened to me, not realizing that what happened to me I was creating, and I was engaged in duality, which was like, you're always going to, whatever you fight, it's always going to stay alive. The Bible talks about this: resist not evil, put up thy sword, right? That which you resist persists. And there's many guys, you can't solve a problem on the same level of consciousness that was created. If you listen to these messengers through the years, there's many of them that have said it, that once you hear it, you're like, that's what they're talking about. It's an inside job. You can't fix anything in the material world, because the material world is just a reflection of the true spiritual, or the world of mind, the mental universe that we're part of.
So when you start seeing the mental universe, or the universal truth, I guess, what do you think comes first, the suffering or seeing the truth?
For me, it's always the suffering.
Suffering for me too.
Right. Buddha said the path to enlightenment is through suffering, right? And it is. It's like every time a level of consciousness that no longer serves me, or I'm done with it, I suffer. I'm like, it's that touching the hot stove and getting burnt. But it's like, why does it take me so many times to get burnt till I finally learn? And I'm like, ooh, this no longer serves me. This is not who I want to be. But old programming really dies hard. And for me, it does physically hurt when it gets removed. Every time it changes, I'm like, it hurts my head, my crown chakra, or my third eye, whatever, those things get on fire. I'm physically tired and drained. When you empty the cup completely from each vibration or level, and to make room for the next one, for me, it's a physical process, and I suffer physically and mentally and emotionally. That's just me. That's just what I've noticed. And then I get into the next one, and I'm really good for a while. And I'm like, oh yeah, everything's great. That's all right. And I've only been doing this 8 years, and I've only went through a few of them. So like, I'm sure it's never going to end. But I feel like I just came out of a pretty gnarly, pretty deep-rooted seed of the fear and the low self-esteem and insecurities and confidence issues that my human had, and created a world based off that, which was full of alcohol and drugs. And I numbed myself because I was so scared of everything. And when I numbed myself, everything became easy. And I quit 8 years ago, and I'm finally just seeing the real reason of why I drank and used. So, that was a while. So I'm imagining there's going to be more and more and more. And the human dies hard, and the ego, the human dies daily. It's dying all the time. And, it's more will be revealed, more layers are removed. And the deeper you get into that center, it's like the layers are tighter. And when they get ripped off, it's like skin getting ripped. It's not like the outer layers of an onion where they're dry and they just peel right off. It's real simple. It's like,
it's the wet ones that,
yeah, you get into the core, and it's like, it comes off in chunks, not layers anymore. You know what I mean? And that's the best
worst visual of all time, by the way.
Yeah, that's just the best way I could describe it, because it's true, right? It's like, once you get down there, it's like, ooh, this hurts, man. And these are thicker layers, and this shit's brutal sometimes. But I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't want to. I think that's the only reason why we're here. Sometimes I wish that I was in an ignorant state of not knowing about these things, to not grow, because it was sure blissful being an alcoholic and an addict for a long time, which is why we call it the cosmic joke, right?
Right? Yeah, exactly. But like, do you think like at a certain point that like the suffering maybe doesn't happen as much because we know, or do you think we're bringing on the suffering to a certain degree?
I feel like we're absolutely bringing it on, but I got to remind you, from my perspective and from my journey in life, when I was an alcoholic and addiction, I was suffering every day.
True. Yeah.
I was suffering every day. It was brutal. Like, I was like not a good, happy person. Like, inside, I always felt creepy crawly, like I wasn't comfortable in my skin. I was always angry. I wasn't good. You know what I mean? I was not in a good spot. It felt like suffering my whole life. When I look back, it was like suffering 24/7, right? And drinking and using drugs, I masked it and made it work for a little bit, and it hid that for a little bit until it quit working, and then it got worse. And then in sobriety, I had this blissful nirvana moksha few years where I'm like, wow, it's been removed. I'm like a pink cloud, and then that lasted a few years, and then slowly but surely, at the end of that cycle, I started feeling that way again, and I'm like, man, I'm sober, but I kind of feel that icky, and it starts and it took years to come to the surface, and now it's like the same way it took me a long time to realize an alcoholic addict. Now it's like, well, you got a lot of fear and and low self-esteem and insecurities and not confidence, and which to me is all fear, but it's like now it's time to deal with that. And honestly, once again, I had to keep repeating cycles of things that weren't working out to realize you're scared as shit and it's got you frozen. So what do you expect? And then it's humbling to admit, once again, I'm creating it, but it's with things that are deep within me, shadows that I had no idea were there because I numbed them for so long, and now I'm rebuilding myself, which rebuilds my reality. And it's a dance, So yeah, I for me, what I've experienced is suffering is absolutely the key to remove, more, to take the shadows that are still within you and bring them to make the unconscious conscious. And every time I'm making them, the longer I'm in here, the distance gets further apart. It's not day-to-day suffering so much, but then as I go to my next level, it did kind of become day-to-day suffering again. But now I'm coming out the other side where honestly, I'm getting back into my excited mode. I have a little bit of suffering going on, a little bit of humility, but I'm like, yeah, here we go. I just looked at that. Time to face it. Let's go. Let's move forward. So I'm back more in that exciting phase of, wow, what's going to happen on this next, this next part of my story, this next season. And so, yeah, I will. And I would imagine it's going to happen again, like I said. So I might hit another spot where I start suffering again. And I'm like, ooh, this isn't working for me. And, that's, my long story of, as, the impermanence of the universe changes. Sometimes we want to be comfortable, but when the universe wants to change, it's going to change. And we want to stay attached to whatever identity that is. And we stay attached as long as we can until it hurts. And then it's like, okay, let it go. And it's a dance. It's like a dance.
So do you believe that there can be an end for suffering? And do you think you can choose to end that suffering?
I would like to completely think so. Absolutely. I feel that, yeah, I would like to believe that at a certain point, absolutely. And I really think once you get rid of if you could truly get rid of the fear, which should be easy to do because my soul knows it's an illusion, and it knows that why would you be scared of yourself? Everybody's you. Like you're on this thing, it's all you. There's only one of you, but yet you're human scared of yourself, right? And so that's the world you create in your mirror, and so yeah, I think as you start to face your fears and your shadows, and you keep stepping into them, and you see how it works out beyond your wildest dreams, and you see how there's this one self here to take care of itself. Eventually you're just going to get a whole new program and be like, you do remove all that fear. Because I could tell you this, I lost my fear of death a long time ago. I'm not scared to die because I know I never do die, right? Like the things that most people are scared of, I am not scared of. But then there's these stupid little things that a lot of people aren't scared of that I'm scared of. But the big things, like I said, like nobody ever dies and nobody's ever born. There's only one thing here experiencing itself. And when you see that level of awareness, you know that when things pass, it's because, I think they've either done their job and maybe the consciousness is upgraded within the family. So something leaves now because that set of lessons that were necessary between what appears to be two family members is done, and you've passed it or you upgraded it, or maybe you failed and it's going to come back. But a lot of the things that most people have a hard time with, I do not have a hard time with, honestly. I see the perfection in all of it. I'm grateful for that lens, of a lot of the stuff that most humans really stay attached to that really don't matter, like traffic and stupid things that people let them affect them. And it's so silly to watch, but it is, or fear, worrying about things that aren't happening a lot, that are very, I don't know. It's sad to watch when, you see a lot of people are still scared of things. It's like they get into their minds, well, what if this? It's like, whoa, man, that it looks really draining. But then again, I have my own set of stupid things that I have within me. So you know.
Did you ever notice that things like, at least I noticed for me, that things that I used to worry about all the time, once I healed it, it stopped showing up for me. Did you experience the same thing for you?
Um, yeah, well, I think a lot of the things I used to worry about just never happened. It was
Mm,
wasted energy. But yeah, there was absolutely, I've seen with other people in my life, on my journey, sometimes some of their biggest, worst fears that they literally created their life around and never happened, those things would still happen,
mm,
you know. Like they were so scared about it, and they were in such fear that they created this outer picture to protect things from that happening. And the universe is like, no, this is karma. It's still going to happen no matter what you do. The bigger karmic lessons that, you know, were supposed to happen in a family dynamic or generational traumas are going to happen regardless. So it's an interesting spot because I definitely think a lot of them are illusions and delusional. And then some of the really, really gnarly ones I've seen come true, you know. But I think it's also everything happening, right? Each reality is a reflection of where each person's at on the journey. So if I'm worried about people ripping me off or stealing from me, then there's a possibility that's going to happen when I get to the realization that I'm not going to steal from myself or rip myself off. Then that's not going to happen, right? And so all these things are happening depending where you're at on the path and the journey and what level of awareness you're observing, and not only observing, but you know is real, right? Because if you don't know it's real, it doesn't happen because you don't see it. So how could you see it if you don't? You got to know it to see it, you know.
mm.
And so there's back to that same self experiencing itself, right? To have all the experiences, and trust me, I've lived on the other side where I didn't get all these things. So I've been in the what ifs and a lot of things. But I can tell you what, I don't know. To me, it's like I'm all for people owning guns. Like it doesn't bother me, but I also think, why would I have a gun? Because I don't need to protect myself from something that's not happening. Like that's me, weren't right? Like just
Mm.
don't protect myself. I'm good. Like the fact that I'm protecting myself actually creates the opportunity with the universe to mirror back a reason for me to protect myself.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
You know what I mean? It's like cause and effect. So if I don't set the cause in motion, I'm not going to get the effect.
Mhm. Yeah, so you don't have to worry about it as long as you just let it go.
Right. You just let it go, and I have learned on this sobriety journey, and journey of self-awareness, whatever you want to call it, when it's out of mind, it's out of sight. Like I don't see alcohol anymore. I could go to a bar and I do not see alcohol. I'm not even, and then I'll look, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, it's here, but I forget about it. Right. So
Mhm.
out of mind, out of sight. If I'm not worried about anybody doing me wrong or anything happen, I hear it happening around me in the world, the helicopter, the police sirens, because other people are still creating that reality.
Interesting. Okay.
Right. But it doesn't come into my bubble.
That makes sense. Okay. Yeah. No, I get that. Hmm. No, I just never thought about it like that. Okay, that makes sense.
So
Hmm. That gave me something to think about now.
I don't know. We start talking and who knows where everything goes, but it's fun.
So,
Yeah. But
okay, sorry, what were you saying?
no, feel free. I've been talking too much. You should fill in.
No, I was just trying to think. I was like, what was our topic?
Well, our topic was supposed to be think, don't think, listen, right? And
Listen, okay.
I guess this all falls into that, truthfully,
It
listen.
does. Yeah.
So I don't know.
What's a nice way we could tie that into like a because it's almost at the 1 hour mark. So I'm like, okay, what's a nice way that we can like tie it up together in some kind of good kind of example that we can like with everything that we talked about from conspiracy theories to a good philosophical debate to alcoholism. How do we put it all together into into the something that we can close it up with?
I'm gonna let you do that part.
Okay. Yeah.
No, we'll do it together, but you start.
Let's do a 15-minute meditation.
How do you tie it in the sobriety and staying? I think what most people I would like, I'll go since you brought it up, I guess, is when people think, oh, I decided to get sober. I decided that I don't think you really decided. I think you listened. I really believe that. I think that's maybe the start of your journey of listening again, right? So if you're already trying to be a better person, and maybe it has nothing to do with drugs and alcohol, maybe it has to do with gambling or sex or whatever other human shopping, and you're finally just like, man, I got to change, right? Is that you thinking you got to change? Because your human probably doesn't want to change, right? Your human's fine. It's like, it's cool like that, but your soul, it's like, no, man, I got to change, And so I think when you're pondering or you're contemplating and you're hearing, I got to do something different. It's not you thinking, it's you listening. Right now, you're listening to the universe telling you, "Hey, you need to change." You're hearing, "I want it. Maybe I should," but it's telling you, "Hey, you need to look at yourself."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something's up. Yeah, things around you are changing to like give you opportunities to like show you that something can be different. Other people are around you are different. Yeah, just opportunities.
Right. And, let's be real. I can tell you get in this path. You really don't know that the universe is, reality is showing you everything you need to see because you don't really get, a lot of people, some people are able to connect the dots and see the signs. But it took me a long time to get to where I really realized that my reality is showing me everything I need to see when I really look for it. And so, as you know, when old operating systems are changing, people's outer worlds tend to fall apart, in whatever way that looks like, right? It might not be falling apart in a bad way, but things just start to change, And so I do think there's a part where your soul is ready to change and you're not totally aware of it. So the universe is going to keep hitting you in the head with an experience to get you to see it. And I've seen this with many people where they don't listen, right? They're still thinking, they're not listening. So it gets a little bit bigger and a little bit harder. And, they still don't get it. And then, but they keep doing what they're doing, expecting a different result, right? That's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And they keep doing it, and they keep doing it. And the universe is like, this doesn't work anymore. You're done. And it gives you another experience that's a little bigger and a little harder. And everybody's rock bottom looks different, right? Everybody's, their final one that really gets them to be open to this new operating, to truly have what we call desire or willingness, which I really think you're at a spot where you're so broken that you have no other choice but to accept this new, to start evolving and growing, as opposed to, thinking it all, or thinking my way is better, or, I got to do this all by myself, right? And I don't have a relationship with some power greater than myself. And it's all perfect. I think you got to go through that dark night of the soul. The hero's journey, I think, is the one thing we all actually, could share. And I ponder, does everybody wake up on the hero's journey? Does everybody realize it's a hero's journey? And you always find your tribe. When you do, then everyone in your world does, and you start to all do it together, and it's really cool. But then you watch how the planet works, and you're like, there's no way that everybody's doing this, because this planet wouldn't be this jacked up if they were. People would be much more aware of so many things that we keep alive by participating in them. And we say they're okay because it's become such built into our operating system, or the program of reality, that the more people just keep doing them, the more we're saying that it's okay and we accept it, which keeps it alive, right? When we all get together and go, we don't like that, but we're actually going to stop doing that and using that, it'll go away because it won't work anymore, because none of us are using it, and like whatever loans, government funding, credit cards, like, okay, well, maybe just use cash and quit paying in that system. Eventually, when we quit using them, they're going to dissolve because they need us to exist, and we think we need them. And then we got codependency to the max fullest that you can ever have. So I don't have a lot of sympathy when people bitch and complain. Honestly, I'm like, well,
do something different.
Something different.
We mean that with love, because we've been there, done that.
Yeah, that would totally.
I wish somebody did it to me sooner, because I spent a lot of time being miserable.
And don't get me wrong, I still need people around me to tell me stuff that I need to hear that I'm not seeing. Trust me, like, this is the beauty of your soul family, because sometimes it's like, you need to tell me, Randall, like, you're fucking tripping, and like, oh, whoops, yeah, you're right, like, I'm not aware, and it's like, hey, you're saying all these things, but you're not living it, or you're not practicing what you preach, and I think it's important to have, accountability family that will call you on your shit, and it's a gift to have that in your life. I think that's the only way the system keeps evolving is through accountability. Without accountability, it'd be total chaos.
Oh, and there we have it. That's what we should do for our next episode, is putting things into action. That would be a good one.
Putting them into action.
Yeah, accountability and putting things into action and just doing something about it.
Yeah, well, that's how this podcast started, right? We were talking about it and the cosmic joke. We were kind of going through some rough times. We're like, hey, I think now's the perfect time. We got into action. We started it. And that's also for me, when I'm in fear, I tend to freeze and get out of action. You know what I mean? And so when I get into action, action is a huge part in reality creation. Without action, nothing happens.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. And since we started doing this, I'm like, yo, this is actually fun. Just like, just do something different. And like, it's fun. Get to talk about the Matrix.
Yeah, right. The matrix of the mind, this delusions we created in our head that we thought were real, and come to find out they're total self-created nightmares, which is cool to finally understand, and realize that we don't have to drink or use drugs to deal with life anymore, right? We get to stay sober through it all, and learn to feel it and then process it and let it go as quick as, in a healthy way, right? You don't want to carry them for too long and keep your vibe low. So, you process it, you feel it, and you move on to the next. And some, it's a fun way to live life.
Absolutely. Oh,
That's
great. Okay. Well,
nice and snowy at your house today. I like it looks like you're cold up there. I decided to jump in my ship today and go travel through the solar systems and the galaxies because I was a little bored on planet Earth. So
yeah, that sounds more fun than this. Like,
yeah, I'm way out on the edge of the universe. I'm watching actually the edge of it expand while we're talking here. It's pretty neat.
That's good. Yeah, I like this background. It's pretty nice. It's good.
I want to invite anybody who's ever got comments or opinions on anything that we talk about. I'd love to hear feedback from what you guys observe, and and help me expand by sharing your truths and your wisdoms and your observations of this really trippy mentally created world that we all get to have a shared experience on some level. So I look forward to feedback and opinions and comments and all that fun stuff.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you, friends, and thanks for joining us on episode 3, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Yeah, I think you have to stop the recording. I didn't want to leave just in case.
Zach, I didn't stop it, actually. You're still being recorded.
Well, this is going to be the outro to the YouTube video.